Hello guys, David Vose here. Well, it's a beautiful summer day. It rained really good, I guess, last night and partly some of it yesterday. It's just kind of raining off and on. We're going to get some more rain today. It's beautiful. But we still haven't gotten the big downpours, which is what I'm waiting for because I've dug that pond and I'm hoping that the water will run down and just fill that pond up. And then we'll be able to see how long the water's going to stay in the pond and what we got to do and does it need to be sealed. But I think it'll be all right because most of this soil out here isn't really soil, it's clay. And I found out how you can tell just how much clay is in the soil and stuff. It's not the perfect clay, but it's pretty darn close. So I think everything's going to be all right. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I'm having a really good day. I felt good this morning when I woke up. The garden is just blooming and growing, and man, I've got potatoes growing and onions everywhere, and oh man, just dogs are doing wonderful and the chickens are happy. And not only that, I think we're about to find out some information that's beyond mind-blowing. It makes me happy, but it also kind of makes me sad because the last video or two I've done on this, which I think is the most important information we've done to date, not too many people are watching it at all. I don't know if we're even going to get 1,000 people watching that video I did yesterday, and it was probably the most important video that you could ever find. I really encourage you to go back and watch that if you haven't, and share it with as many people as you can, because this is information that you need to know. We've been doing the mind-blowing stuff for a long time. Revelation, enlightenment. It's satisfying to find out that when we understand things from the Bible, in the past I've done a lot of videos and I've made a lot of statements, and some of you have been following me on this journey. And I think some of the things I've said you don't really think is true, but you still watch me, some of you, because you think, well, it's information that's interesting and I learn a lot, but maybe not all of it's true. Well, today and in the coming videos, we're going to find out that a lot of what I was saying really is true. And we're talking about all the knowledge of the ancient hieroglyphs and all the knowledge of Atlantis and all the knowledge of the Bible. This is deep. Literal questions about the shape of the earth. It's not just spelled out for you. They didn't write it in English. And they seem to have not only wrote it in not English, but they wrote it in parables, which is probably how it got down to us. And then there are spiritual things. What connection does all of these literal things that we're learning have to do with the spiritual understanding? And what is spiritual understanding? It's growth in the knowledge of self, knowing who you are, understanding the universe and what its relationship is to us. That the universe is a manifestation of mind. But it's one thing to just say that. We went through years of people publishing books like The Power of Positive Thinking. What an amazing book. It told people you could move mountains with your mind. And people got excited about it and they tried to do it, but they couldn't do it. Nobody did it. I didn't see anybody doing a lot of miracles publicly or openly. We've got a lot of shysters running around, I just saw, who's that woman with the satanic Joker smile that I'm always talking about? Joyce Myers. I knew when I saw that Joker smile, plastic surgery on her face, that she was into some kind of, occult underground. I mean, look, if it wasn't underground, she'd be openly saying, I'm in the Masonic, brotherhood, and I'm, modern Masonic brotherhoods are evil. They're doing all the deception in the world. They're bringing the world to an end. But just how evil is it? Do any of them know what they're doing? Right? They're just little pawns in this game. And who's running the game? Oh, it's the devil. Well, is the devil evil, or is he just like the darkness? We've got to have him to go to sleep. And then in the morning, the sun rises, and it's some sort of game, right? Well, all of these questions are deep. But when you look at individuals like certain Satanists and stuff, I don't believe that human beings are evil. But we have something evil in us. And it isn't even evil in the sense of that word. It's just we have the ignorance and we have the enlightenment. And when a person is ignorant, they're ruled over not by their own mind, not by their own intent or will. When you got that going on, you are exalted, a divine being. But instead, before you get to that, before you get your white robe and your crown, you're ruled over by a hard taskmaster. And the only way you can be ruled over by this taskmaster, this fiend, is that he lies to you and deceives you, and you're being ruled over, and you're doing his bidding because of fear. Now, if that was all you were, was a ball of fear, doing evil, and being led by your nose ring, and there was no hope for you, we'd have to put you out of your misery. I guess that would be evil. But none of us are that. That is that outer part of us that we all have. And some of us are enmeshed in it, deceived by it, following after the flesh. But others have come to a place where they've matured. They were babes, and now they're growing up, ready for the meat, becoming mature and able to take their power and reign. And these individuals were once ruled over by the lower ego. The lower ego is simply not really you. It's just an illusion. The devil will always be there, because there will always be a universe going forward and backwards, and will always be learning and forever infinitely expanding and growing. And so wherever you are, there's always going to be things, hurdles to overcome, and ignorances to get over. But it's a principle that we're talking about here. So individuals like Joyce Meyer, she was probably chosen because she was of an elite family. I'm sure most of the people running the show are elite families. Why? Because you couldn't get most people in this world to host your evil. Because most of us are all the children of the Lord, and we don't want to do that. But I do believe there was a family that took an oath before they even came here to be the jester. They're the clowns. They come out on the stage right? A curtain is lifted, but not completely. You see, it's just a play. It's a drama. If we really lifted the curtain, we'd see it face to face, the Shekinah, the glory, the reality. But because we don't see it, we're all ignorant. They're playing a game, a show. It's a stage. The whole world's a stage, and it's a theater. And so I think these individuals like Joyce Myers and all the rest of them, whether it be business, politics, or movies and finance, or the medical lawyers, and all of the elite positions of power, lawyers and doctors and scientists and movie stars and financial gurus, I believe those are positions that are held for this particular family that are here to put on a show, La da 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 da, and they do a little tap dance, and they come out, and so I don't know if all of that family knows exactly what they're doing, but at least some of them do. So I was going to say that I saw Joyce Myers is in this picture. You can find it online. I may put it here, where she's crossing her arms like an X in front of her chest. Now, that's an unusual pose. It wouldn't be something you would normally do to pose. Well, there is another guy, some guru, standing next to her doing the same pose. And you can find this pose. It goes back to Osiris. You say, well, then it's evil. They're of the occult. Ho, ho, Dave. Well, as we've said, the occult isn't evil. The occult is this wisdom, this hidden knowledge. It's the mysteries. So there are those who know the mysteries. And I don't know that the people that are running the world, these Judeans, I don't know that they intend to be evil. They're playing a part. I don't believe that they're being instructed to do that by our Lord Jesus. But they are being instructed by their own carnal desires and ignorance. And somebody is risen to the top and sits upon that lower throne of this world, hasn't yet been enlightened, so he probably doesn't realize what he's doing. But when I see somebody like Joyce Myers doing this, and I know that she doesn't understand fully these spiritual things, I give you an example. Aleister Crowley was all involved in all this dark stuff. To someone like you and I, we think, well, that's evil. He's got to be evil. But what I think it's more fitting to explain him this way. I think he was desperately desiring, to the point of lust, certain power. Not evil, just a very childish young soul that didn't have a grasp on integrity and love, but wanted very badly to have power and money and fame. Maybe even glory. He might have even done good things. He might have gave his life, if it would save all men, just to get the glory, not necessarily because he had this deep love for humans. So it's very difficult to distinguish between the two, because some would literally give their lives for all of us, but not for us, for themselves. They're hoping to get some position. But you can only do that if you believe you're going to get rewarded for doing anything. Because as Jesus said, if you want to be somebody in the kingdom, become the least. Let the Heavenly Father put you in that tall seat. You take the short seat. Be humble. That's something that only wise individuals can do. And wisdom comes with being an elder and being older and wise and graduating in enlightenment. So we got individuals that know just enough to be a human and walk around and act like a human. And they begin to read these mysteries and they don't know what they mean. Because if you go deep into these mysteries, you find out that from the very beginning of time, our Bible says, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. So now we've got three things here, all there in one sentence. Heavens and earth. Well, we got four if you include the beginning. But, so time, maybe, the beginning of time. But there in that beginning is the Elohim. Now that's plural, and that means all the deities. So ultimately, there was no creation. They've always existed. The Elohim is everything. It's the all, El and all, same word. The reality, the infinite reality has always been. But to bring it into manifestation is different. Now, I don't want to go real deep into all these explanations, but let me just say here that we start off with a heavens and an earth, because the whole first chapter of Genesis is the creation of the heavens and the earth, right? All the way down to the last verse. So the first line is, in the beginning, he created the heavens and the earth. Maybe that's just a paraphrase of what he's going to do. And that word create doesn't mean from nothing. It just means manifested or brought forth. And it says, the earth was formless and waste, or void and empty, or in the Hebrew, toa and boah, which means void, no time, and empty, no space. So, Tiamat, boah and toa, which is the hippopotamus, and the Tihom, which is the Egyptian way of understanding time and space. Because one was like an alligator, and he had 7 heads, so it represented time, and one was like a behemoth, which was space. It was large, and he wallowed around in the abyss, because darkness reigned over the abyss. So this was the Egyptian way of looking at it, and we have the same story in the Sumerian, the Babylonian, or whatever. Instead of a Leviathan and a behemoth, or in the Hebrew, Toa and a Ba, or the time and space, in the Sumerian and the Babylonian, we seem to see 2 serpents. Our Bible calls them seraphim. They have 6 wings each, and they spread out their wings, and it's a sphere with 6 on one side and 6 on the other. And these 2 serpents. Well, if you look at the Egyptian and the Babylonian, you begin to understand it takes quite a bit of effort to get all this information out of it. Begin to understand that somewhere there's the source, where everything revolves around that source. We'll find out exactly what the source is here in a minute. But and it's the kingdom, and it's all the reality. It's everything, the heavens and the earth. It's all done. Perfect. Existed for all eternity. It's immortal. Pristine. But in order to get in there's something else other than the reality. There's the non-reality, the ignorant, the temporary, the carnal. And all the beings in this carnal school that leads to Christ, all this material, temporary world, the illusion, we're individuals that were from the reality. We fell or came down into this delusion or this darkness to wallow around like pigs in the mud and to learn. So this destiny, or this goal that we have, is to get to this source. And it's a place where not just anybody can go in there, so you got to have guards. Our Bible says there's the cherubim that guards the way of the tree of life, and the Egyptians say it's this crocodile and the hippopotamus that guard the way. Well, Joseph Smith says it's Kolob, which is an Arabic word for one of the stars right next to Polaris. Kolob actually is the center. It for thousands of years, and it kind of switches over to Polaris. They wobble there in the middle. But there's several of these governing stars that Joseph Smith talks about. Well, that's the North Star Polaris, and if you notice that if you look in that direction, there's the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper, and those 2 constellations that we know as the Big and Little Dipper, those are the 2 serpents, or the cherubim, or the seraphim that guard the way to the tree of life, and the gargoyles that guard every temple, right? And that's really time and space, and you can't get into eternity without getting through time and space and the classroom and the Horus, or the hours, or the Wheel of Fortune. Starting to thunder. The dogs are like, what? Lightning and thunder is going to rain here. And so there's a gate that leads back. This is the pearly gates that leads to this creation, or the New Jerusalem, which is also just like the New Covenant is the original covenant. It's not the one, it's not a new covenant, but it's one you had from the beginning. The forever covenant. So to get there, you got to go through a door. And there are 2 guards at the door. And this is time and space. To get to reality, or beyond time and space, you've got to go through time and space. And in the Bible, it's described as the cherubim. And it had 4 faces. And these swords that were turning and guarding the way to the tree of life. So the tree of life is in the middle of the garden. It's an infinite place, within, deep within. The garden was around it like a hedge. And the animalistic natures are these other carnal natures. So Genesis 1 is expanded on over and over again by the prophets. And anyone who ever was a prophet had to get the revelation that the Apostle Paul got, and that's how we know he was a prophet. He went into the third heaven, which is paradise, and saw, whether in the body or out of the body, he could not say, but he saw the third heaven or the paradise. And that was the revelation. And what it means is that we grasp the reality and we know the meanings. We receive the grand keys that goes to each of the doors so that we can get in. Reality is a place of peace. It is a place of eternity. We don't really need to earn it. We already ever had it. But in this other world, which we're going to describe, which is the illusion, everything else is described from that point forward. And so now we get time and space, and then darkness on the face of the deep or the abyss. Well, now, interesting. A lot of things the Lord makes. Light was something that the Elohim spoke. They said, let light come to be. As if it did not exist before. Well, of course it did. It could not have come to be unless it had been spoken. And it was spoken from the Elohim. So the light came from the Elohim that was the immortal deities, all of us. Ye are the Elohim. The scripture cannot be broken. We were all there clapping our hands for joy with Christ and Sophia, our mother, the architect of this universe, clapping our hands for joy. We were the morning stars, the stars of the dawn. So there's more than one. And we were in Christ from the founding of the world. So the light was from the beginning. But as soon as we fall into the abyss, this lower chaos, this place where there is time and space. Because before this, there was no time and space. We go into the illusion of time and space, Toat and Ba, emptiness and void. And there in the emptiness and the void, already, nobody brought it into being. Nobody said, let there be darkness. Nobody said, I'm going to make darkness, because darkness isn't something that the Lord made. But it was there. When you leave his kingdom, when you leave the presence of his light, and you go deep into this subterranean hole where the light cannot penetrate, there was darkness. Now notice it says, and there was darkness over the abyss, because it was the darkness that ruled over the depths, the holes, the place where the kingdom of the Lord can't get in, the delusion. So darkness reigned. This was some being, some primordial being. This was some being that didn't exist in the reality. In the first line of Genesis 1:1, Elohim made the heavens and the earth. He wasn't part of the Elohim. They were there, and they made the heavens and the earth. But when you left there and went into time and space, and you went down into that portal of ignorance, there was ruling over it darkness. Nobody made it. Nobody created it. It isn't even there. It's all a delusion. And the next line says, and the spirit of Elohim, Ruach Elohim, was over the waters, hovering over the waters. Oh, in other words, it was the darkness that was ruling over the hole down into the abyss where the light couldn't shine. But on the surface of the waters, or the elements of this delusion, there was still some control by the mind, because the spirit and mind are the same. And it's the mind of the Elohim, or all of the actual entities that are forever, which is the children of the Lord, the family of our divine father and mother. We were all there. And so we were ruling. Now, Ruach Elohim is feminine, and this is our mother, who was reigning over these swarming waters. And then we go from there, and it says, and the Elohim said, let there be light. Now, this is where it's very interesting, because this is the first day, and the sun wasn't made until the fourth day. Now, interestingly enough, all the plants and things and flowers and vegetation was made on the third day. Now, not only was there no sun, because the sun wasn't made until the fourth day, how did the vegetation grow without the sun? Well, there was still light, wasn't there? Because on the very first day, he made light. But what's the difference between the light and the sun and the moon and stars? Because even stars have light. Well, the light is the light that lighteth every man that cometh into the world. Now, this is where it's going to blow your mind. We don't know exactly what all this is here in Genesis, but it's actually a retelling of the story of the Egyptian hieroglyphs, the Babylonian, the Sumerian, Akkadian, all of the rest. And so we can clear some of this up by going to the Egyptian, but we didn't know how to understand Egyptian. Thank goodness Joseph Smith interpreted these fast miles for us, and we're going to go over this. And it's very important that we're going to find things, not just literal things of science, but spiritual things, as we said, so that we can be enlightened and have power over this world and conquer the ignorance in this darkness. So, remember, this story is intertwined with things we find in the New Testament. John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and in Him was life, and the life was the light of men, and all things were made by Him, and not one thing was made without Him. Well, this is like a little explanation of something. Genesis chapter 1. Well, there's more explanation in the Egyptian hieroglyphs and different things. And what we find in the Egyptian is that we have a being called Horus. Now, we get the word hours from this. And in this word Horus is the word light, or. And so it's light. Okay, it has to do with light. Remember, Jesus says, the Father is in me and I am in the Father. So Osiris was the father of Horus. And Osiris was light. But it's consciousness, like we talked about. We'll see here in the Genesis 1, it's called the day, or Dia, Theo. And his wife was Neat, or night. And this is reflected in the Egyptian, too. But Osiris had a brother. So most people don't realize there are two Horuses in the Egyptian. And those who do know there are two don't know why. Well, it's because the Horus we always talk about that raised up his father Osiris was his son. But the other Horus was Osiris's brother. Now, Osiris's elder brother is called Horus the Elder. Now, we're going to find out there's a reason why we have an elder Horus and a younger Horus. Because Osiris dies. What is Osiris? Well, we said Osiris is higher consciousness. That's the light that was made, or the day, right? And when the light dies, when the sun goes down over the horizon, then there's no more light, and it has to be resurrected. So how are we going to know anything when the sun's dead? If there is no light, how are we going to get light back? Well, Isis, his wife, his sister, she sort of revives him, and somehow with the phallus or whatever, she's impregnated. And she gives birth to his son, who is Horus. And then Horus conquers the one who killed his father, Set. So Set's really the brother of Osiris. So darkness kills Osiris. And Isis, through her desire and her wit, finds a way to have a child. This is the way the universe is. It's reborn. Tragedy happens, but it has a way of miraculously coming back to life. Nothing ever really dies. So Horus is the hours who rules over the 12 houses. He rules over all of the planets as well. Now each house has a ruler, and these are these animals. But the ruler of all of them is Horus. So this is why you see Jesus sitting around a table with 12 disciples. Jesus is Horus, who raises up Osiris, Laasiris, and he's the ruler of the 12 constellations, the hours. So when Osiris dies, his wife, Isis, needs someone, because Isis, being the night, cannot really just be in that kind of darkness all alone. So while Osiris is in death, Horus the Elder takes care of Isis. And then when the child is born, Horus, he raises up Osiris back from death. Well, this is the story we find in the New Testament when Jesus resurrects Lazarus. During that time, we see in the first book of John, John says, I, John the Elder, and the lady is with me, and you are children. The lady who is our mother is Isis, and that is the Virgin Mary. And so John the Elder was watching over Mother Mary. And so we find that this New Testament adds and illuminates what is this story all about. Because it's not just about knowing science or how the earth came to be. What we're trying to figure out is certain keys. We're trying to understand the reality here, the enlightenment of the mind. Understanding. And this is why the John in our Bible is so important. He writes the Gospel of John. He writes the Revelation. He is the revelator. He is the light. Because Horus, the original Horus, the elder, is the light. Because remember, it says that the Lord made light, but he hadn't made the sun. Well, the sun is Jesus, who is raised up on the horizon. Right? But Horus, the elder, was being played by John the Revelator. Now, there's more to that story, but we're not going to get into that here today. But the Gospels is the story of the stars, which is the story of the universe, and it's the story of all of us. So, Horus the Elder was the first light when there was no sun. Just the light itself. So, let's go back actually and look at that in Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, Elohim, plural, all of the children of the Lord, ye are the Elohim, and the scripture cannot be broken, Jesus said, created the heavens and the earth, period. Now, the earth was formless and void. Okay, there was no time or space, and darkness was already there, ruling over the abyss or the deep. And the Ruach Elohim was already there, ruling, hovering over the surface of the waters. And the Elohim, all of us said, we all manifest this world. Let there be light. Now that was Horus the Elder. That's just light. And there was light. And the Elohim saw that light was good, He separated the light from the darkness. And Elohim called the light dia, theos, the day. And darkness he called night. And so that was his wife. That was one of his wives. The Egyptians call her Nephthys and sometimes Neat, which is where we get the word night. And there was evening and there was morning the first day. And now, so what we find here is that this was Zeus or Osiris that was made, but the light and the day are really two different things. So they're brothers. So Osiris was there and darkness was there because that's Set. Light was there, which is this higher consciousness, which is this Horus the Elder. And Dea, or Day, or Cyrus, and their brothers. And he has a brother named Set. So here we have darkness ruling over the abyss. And they're all there. Pre-creation. And then there was an evening, and there was a morning the first day. And Elohim said, let there be an expanse between the waters to separate the waters from the waters. So Elohim made the expanse and separated the waters beneath from the waters above. And it was so. And Elohim called the expanse the sky. Now, translators get this all confused. The sky is blue. And that's Uranus, the day. But this is the expanse where the stars are, like outer space. Now, this isn't heaven, because Uranus is a different thing. Uranus is not just the expanse, and actually this word may be they thought of it like a beaten glass or metal work, and all these jewels or the stars were in this expanse, which is a beaten metal dome. It's not a literal dome, but it's the expanse of the stars. The sky is just the blue sky. It is a region of heaven, because heaven is high and there are layers. So there's the third heaven, the second heaven, the first heaven. The first heaven is the sky. So when he made the heavens and the earth, he made the whole thing. And we're going to see where he makes the stars on the fourth day. There is going to be this area, expanse, for the stars. Later on, they're going to be put in this expanse. We see that on the very first day, in Genesis 1:1, he makes the heavens and the earth. That's Uranus and Gaia in Greek. And they're the mother and father of just about everything. So when he makes the heavens and the earth, he's made everything. And this would include the lower heavens and the waters and everything that's there. What we see is a lot of twins, or brothers and sisters, male and females, counterparts, light and darkness, earth and water, and just all kinds of different counterparts, good and evil. And it goes from the very beginning all the way through. And we have to understand and determine who is first and who is second, and where this comes from, where that comes from, because in the end, we're trying to understand where we came from. And if we know the source, and we're really here. So it's not like this is just some parable. We are here and we exist. And light gives us happiness, and we don't stumble our foot upon a stone. So we need to know about light and follow the light. But by the same token, we need to understand what's the source of all of this illusion and why we need to be here and how we're going to get back. And we'll find that from the beginning, we see Adama, which isn't a male. Adama is feminine. And this is what we find in the Sumerian tablets. We're talking about Adama. And Adama is split in two. And then we get evening and Ada, or Dia, and day. So the original, before night and day, there was earth. Now, this is the important thing that I want to point out here. This is something most people have never thought of, and I hadn't thought of it until recently. But the Bible does not say, in the beginning, Elohim made the stars and a vast universe and a galaxy. And after trillions of years, and it all cooled down, swirled around, and just, in swirls. And it cooled off. Maybe trillions of years or whatever, this universe was Big Bang and everything was going on. And all of a sudden, there's this creation of the earth later on. The stars were made already. They're billions of years old, but the earth isn't that old, right? It's made last. Well, that's not what it says. According to Genesis 1, the stars and the sun and the moon weren't made till the fourth day. Light was made on the first day. But that's something other than the light from the sun. And if it weren't for the Horus the elder, we would have no one to protect mother. When our actual day and the actual light goes down over the horizon and we die. So there's an actual sequence here. We can't deviate from the sequence. We cannot say that the sun is the center and the earth revolves around it, because that would imply that the sun was first. It was the power that we revolve around, that the sun is what we need to revolve around because it's our source. And that the sun is revolving around some other planet or some other star, and it's even more, like the galaxy or something. We don't know. Scientists have told us we have galaxies and everything. We have never seen a picture of a real galaxy. It's all CGI. We don't know that. And I'm telling you, the Bible does not teach that. This is new information, friends. But the Lord has been helping me understand this. According to the Bible, in the beginning, the Lord made the heavens and the earth, period. Now, time and space begins. This is the beginning of everything. And what do we got? Stars and moon and sun? No, we've got the earth. The first thing that happens after time and space begins, when creation begins in this physical world, the first thing you see is the earth. Now, the earth didn't have time and space yet, but time and space is about to begin, and it's going to begin on the earth. And there's a deep darkness on this earth. And one thing, but it isn't all bad, our mother, Ruach Elohim, Sophia, was ruling over the waters. So where was she ruling? Was she ruling in outer space over a star? Or was she ruling over the waters, the primordial waters, on the earth? So, in the physical creation, right after time and space began, the first thing that you see is the earth. Now, later on here, you're going to find that he separates an expanse and makes heaven. Heaven is going to be created now from the earth. Earth is the beginning of it all. And this would indicate then that in the beginning, when Elohim created the heavens and the earth, wasn't something or some time before verse 2. It's just a generalization of what's about to occur in verse 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And so, the very first thing is the earth. It was without time and space because we didn't have the sun and the moon and stars to make time and space for seasons and days and years. We didn't have any way to measure anything. We didn't have time. We didn't have space. We couldn't measure. And so we just had the earth. It's the center. From the earth, we have the separation of the waters on the earth. And we have the separation of the air from the ground and from the waters. And then after that, we have vegetation growing. Where? On a star somewhere? No. Not even any stars made yet. There's no sun and moon and stars yet. Now, yeah, there is light, or else the plants couldn't grow. But it's not the sun and the moon and the stars as we know it. So, on the fourth day, the Lord makes the sun and the moon and stars. Now, if that's true, and it's not only in the Bible, but it's also in the Sumerian, the Egyptian, because we're going to go through that here in a minute. These are the grand keys that you got to understand. So, wait a minute. Grand keys, and we just read yesterday, and we'll look at this here again in a minute. We just said that the stars were not made until the fourth day. And it all starts with the earth, and then he separates the heavens and the waters and so forth. But the sun is what gives the earth light. It's one of the governing bodies, according to that what we read yesterday in the fast mile, and that the chief of the governing planets is Kolob, which gives and transfers its light to our sun, and then to the moon and to the earth. So if the stars hadn't been made until the fourth day, then why would we think that Kolob was a source? It would seem like the earth would be the source. Well, the answer is that the Book of Mormon and the hieroglyphs and all the other writings, they don't say that the sun and the moon are stars. They say they're planets. There are 7 planets. And the word planet is a plane. So it's completely different than the stars. So the Pearl of Great Price, the Book of Moses, says that Kolob is the controlling power and the governing planet. There was Adam, and the 7th in line from Adam was Enoch. Those 7 are the 7 planets. And those are the planes, the gradations of earth or planes, physical dimensions. So Joseph Smith drew a circle, which is the earth, and he drew 2 circles, one at the North Pole, one at the South Pole. Those are going and entering into another dimension. And Kolob then is part of the earth planes. It's a planet. So, yeah, when he was making the earth, he made the sun and the moon and the stars as well on the 4th day. And so the sun isn't made until the 4th day. The earth, or the planes and the planets, are the consciousness. It's called the Ka'in Renosh, which is the medium that the light comes through the eye of the sun, but it comes from Kolob, which is the governing body or planet. And so that's the medium, these planets. So Kolob is the light, not the sun, but it's the light. And he made that on the 1st day. And so that's the governing body. And that light, that lighteth every man that cometh into the world, comes into the body, which is the 7 chakras, or the 7 planets. So our sun is called, in the fast mile we saw yesterday, it's called the Inish Goandash. And it's a governing planet, not a star. And the Egyptians call it the sun, he said. But it borrows its light from Kolob through the medium of Kei Van Rash. And that's the grand key, the governing power that governs 15 other fixed planets or stars, also Flois, or the moon, the earth, and the sun in their annual revolutions. So it receives its power through the medium of the Clefloisis, or the Hakokabim. The Hakokabim is the stars. And so there are 15 fixed stars, the Hakokabim. Think about what this is saying. All the source of everything comes from Kolob. It's the governing plane or planet. And the power or the authority and the energy and the spirit comes from there. And through the medium of the Hakokakabim, which is the stars. So this is why in astrology, these are powers. So the influences of the Pleiades, the Bible talks about, the interior rooms of the south, and what you hear in astrology, how we're influenced by the stars. That influence is real. It's a power. It's a medium. But the source is Kolob. Not our sun, not our moon, but they are governing planets. This is why in astrology, you're governed by your sun. You're not governed by the stars. The stars don't have the same power that the sun has. And it doesn't mean because they're farther away, but if we were closer, they'd burn us up. And we don't know what a star is. But they're not as powerful as our sun or our moon. And they're certainly not as powerful as Kolob. Kolob, the sun and the moon, are governing planets. And the Koka'abim are a medium. And if you know that, then you can go to the medium to receive the power. You have to have certain keys. Certain angels require you have to have you have to have a certain key to get past each of one of these angels. And therefore you have to go through all of the houses, and there's a door on every one of those houses, and you've got to go through each and every one of them through your lives. And in some life, you have to be able to be aware and know the grand keys. And when you leave your body at night, the angels will literally take you to Kolob if you have these grand keys. And the Klik-Floesis is the flow of the energy from Kolob, which goes through the medium of the Kahavanrash, which is the physical negative power that is in the body. And it goes down through the chain, through the elemental chart, through the planetary chart, the 7 planets. But Kolob is the governing body over everything. And Kolob is a planet, not one of the stars. The stars weren't made until the 4th day. And so on the 4th day, he made the sun and the moon and the stars. So until the 4th day, the earth in this consciousness, in this earthly consciousness, we did not have that element or that medium to receive the light from Kolob. So men weren't even made until the 6th day on the earth. We were still at our home location in Kolob when the sun and the moon and the stars were created. So don't worry, the sun and the moon and the stars were created before we came here, before consciousness came to the earth. Before that, we were in Kolob. But this entire situation is the creation of the heavens and the earth. Before the sun and the moon and the stars were created, Kolob was made. And that's where in Genesis it says, and he said, let there be light, and there was light. And so that was Kolob. So the earth existed then, but it was dark and void and without time and space. And Satan was ruling over the earth. And our mother was ruling over the waters. And there was this stalemate. First thing the Lord did was make higher consciousness, which is Kolob. And then that higher consciousness, or the light of Christ, was sent down through the medium of the elemental chain, or the planets. And that's Adam all the way down to Enoch, the 7th in line. Now, the 12 are the 12 tribes, and they came later, and that's the 12 stars, or the Ha-Ka-Kobim. And they also receive from the governing body the light of Kolob, and then through the sun and the moon, they receive their light. See, the light of the stars are twinkling. Their energy is burning because of Kolob. And that's the governing planet that rules over this entire place. What we're going to find out here in a minute, maybe in I don't even know if we're going to get to it in this video, because this is going to take several videos, a series of videos. Maybe we'll be discussing this a year from now. This is going to be deep. We're not just finding out the shape of the earth here. We're not just going to find out the cosmology or the science behind everything, or numbers or anything like that. Although we're going to, and it's going to be satisfying, we're going to find out some of that information. You can't divorce that information. You can't say, well, it's just symbolic. It has to be this way, or else there is no universe. We're going to find that out. So we start with this literal understanding, but the spiritual stuff we want to get to. But one thing we know is that there were no stars, there was no sun, and there was no moon. Only the earth before the time and the space. Right at the beginning of time and space. Before, in the beginning, right? There was the earth. And then he separates the earth from the waters and the air and all of this and makes vegetation. And on the fourth day, then he makes the sun, the moon, and stars. So what could the sun and the moon and stars be? Well, if you think of it as a vast universe, infinite blackness with these little star systems, and each one has a planet, and they're flying around up there, then you might think that some big bang and boom, and all the universe was flung out there in the infinite space. How could that be? Space couldn't exist without consciousness, friends. So therefore, nothing in this universe could have existed before man. Nothing before this earth. Certainly, before consciousness. And Adam and Eve were the first of these children to be humanoids on this earth. So, the infinite, or the time and the space, can't exist without first making earth, and then water, and then air. We need time and space we need material, and we need spiritual things. We need a lot of we need light. We need light and earth to make consciousness, and to have time and space. And we need time and space to have humans. So now we see that what the scientists are trying to tell us, and if we're imagining what they're telling us and believing it, then what we're believing is that the universe exists, inanimate, has no light that is consciousness, only some other kind of light, which is just some lifeless light, some spark or energy that has no consciousness. It exists outside of consciousness, and therefore no one saw it happen. If a planet crashed into another star or planet, or was cooking and boiling and hydrogen bombs blowing and nuclear fusion on some star somewhere and exploding into novas for millions and trillions of years, but there was no consciousness, there was no mind, then it wouldn't matter if it had happened. It didn't exist. Nothing exists until mind. And in fact, what we're finding out here is this is the grand key, that mind must exist before material shapes and forms. The mind precedes it. That's the eternal world, is the mind, heaven. The spirit is the eternal world, the spiritual world. And it doesn't exist in time or space. This world, the physical world and physical stars and moons and suns, did not exist for trillions of years flying around out there before this earth was made. And this brings us to this. If the earth was made first, and we haven't yet proved it's a flat earth, I'm not saying that, but what we are saying, it is not heliocentric, but it is geocentric. Because the sun hasn't been made yet. Everything starts with the earth. So it's a geocentric. And whatever the earth is, the material part of this universe is earth. The material, matter, mother. And she gave birth to all these other individuals, and we're gonna go from one to the other. And if we know what came first, and we believe that these things that exist by virtue of mind, then we know there is a mind or a power, which is a mind, an authority, because it is a will, a being that is behind every physical thing. And this is the first grand key, basically, to understand this. But there are many keys. If you want to be enlightened, you have to understand that you're going to live in your consciousness as it's created in your mind, because you've been influenced by a greater light. If the light that's in your mind can make this beautiful world that you look at and see, there has to be a greater light that governs your light. You have to have a father. You didn't exist in this universe without a father. And you're born into a world which is a mindset. Somebody's will governs what they think and what they manifest. And then every child thereafter is governed by that mind. So we've got to go back and find the highest mind that governs everything. And that takes belief and understanding and wisdom. And we'll find out that whoever that is a real being. And so the characters in our Bible, Adam and Eve, Abel and Seth, and all these characters, are describing these beings that are from the beginning, our ancestors. And when we know who they are, all we have to do is realize that we're being controlled by them. Their mindset made all of this, and we're living in their bubble. We're living in their world under their rules. And when we find out that there are two of these individuals, one in the illusion that is darkness reigning over his world, and that we are literally being governed by this one, then we need to turn and find the one that governs the reality. And once we turn unto the living deity, that is a key, because he will automatically give you entrance into the door into his kingdom, because you were already there. You're his child. He'll clap his hand. All the angels of the Lord in the true kingdom of our Father and Mother will clap their hands for joy when any child turns away from this devil, the delusion, where they don't know that their mind and their thoughts are being manifested from lies. And once they've turned away from that and they turn to the true, you automatically enter into that kingdom like through a wormhole. You don't have to get in a ship or a rocket or any other thing or a car, or you literally are just translated into the kingdom of his dear son. Anyway, guys, we're going to keep digging and going further. Don't you worry. But we're over an hour now, so we're going to close for today, and we'll come right back here tomorrow, or as soon as we can get here, probably tomorrow, and we'll do another hour of this. And we may have other subjects from time to time, but we're going to be getting into this because I think most of you, like myself, you want to understand this, and we need to understand it now because we're living in some very difficult times. I don't know if you saw that debate last night, but that was pretty interesting. And it almost makes you, believe that Trump's trying, doesn't it? But anywho, I hope you guys have a really, really wonderful evening. I'm going to leave it here. We'll see you guys tomorrow. The Lord will bless you. Have a good one.